The shopping cart slammed against the glass door with a hollow crash that echoed through the nearly empty convenience store. 3 tiny bodies flinched at the sound. The cashier froze mid-scan, and the man in the tailored charcoal coat, one of the wealthiest developers in the state, stood perfectly still as if someone had just whispered a ghost from his past into his ear. The smallest of the triplets had dropped a carton of milk. It rolled across the tile floor and stopped at his polished Italian shoes. He didn't move. The boy didn't either. For a long, unbearable moment, they simply stared at each other. Have you ever locked eyes with someone and felt your entire world tilt? Outside, cold November rain streaked down the store windows. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flickering faintly. The air smelled like cheap coffee, stale chips, and something metallic, like the scent that lingers after fear. Daniel Whitmore had walked into that store for bottled water. Nothing more. At 42, Daniel was the kind of man magazines described as self-made. Founder of a luxury construction empire. Owner of 3 waterfront properties. Donor to political campaigns. He wore success like armor. Expensive watch. Perfect haircut. Emotion carefully tucked beneath discipline. He didn't notice the children at first. No one really had. They stood near the refrigerated section, thin jackets too light for the cold, mismatched sneakers, hands clasped together like a silent pact against the world. 2 boys and 1 girl. Identical brown curls. Identical wide eyes. Identical hunger. Triplets. The girl's lip trembled as the milk rolled toward him. I'm sorry, she whispered. Her voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through him. Daniel slowly bent down and picked up the carton. It was dented but not broken. He placed it gently into their cart, a cart that held nothing but that milk and a loaf of white bread. Are your parents here? He asked, his tone automatically businesslike. The 3 children exchanged a glance. The oldest boy shook his head. They left, he said. Daniel straightened. Left where? The smallest one answered this time. They said they'd be back. How long ago? Daniel asked. Silence. The girl's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back with stubborn strength. Yesterday, she said. The cashier shifted uncomfortably behind the counter but said nothing. She had seen them come in that morning. Had assumed a distracted mother was somewhere nearby. Daniel's jaw tightened. Do you have a phone? He asked. The oldest boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a cracked flip phone. It looked ancient. The battery icon blinked red. They're not answering, he said. Daniel felt something unfamiliar press against his ribs. Not anger. Not irritation. Recognition. The girl stepped closer. Are we in trouble? She asked softly. He looked down at her small hand gripping the cart handle. Her knuckles were pale from the cold. No, he said quietly. You're not in trouble, but someone was. He glanced around the store as if expecting a hidden camera crew to jump out and shout that this was some twisted social experiment. But there was only rain tapping against glass and the low buzz of fluorescent lights. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Child Protective Services. As it rang, he felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on him. What's your names? He asked. Liam, said the oldest boy. Noah, said the smaller one. And I'm Lily, the girl whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. I'm Daniel. Lily studied him carefully. You look like someone who doesn't shop here, she said with innocent honesty. For the first time in months, Daniel almost smiled. You're probably right, the CPS operator answered, and Daniel stepped aside to explain the situation. As he spoke, he kept watching them. Watching the way Liam subtly positioned himself in front of his siblings like a shield. Watching Noah shiver but refuse to complain. Watching Lily glance toward the door every few seconds, hoping. Waiting. Have you ever waited for someone who wasn't coming back? 20 minutes later, a social worker named Mrs. Alvarez arrived. Kind eyes. Worn briefcase. Tired but compassionate posture. She crouched in front of the children. Hi sweethearts. I'm here to help. Lily looked at Daniel before answering. Are you leaving too? She asked him. The question hit harder than it should have. Daniel cleared his throat. I'm not going anywhere, he said automatically. But he knew that wasn't true. He had meetings, contracts, a flight to New York that evening. Mrs. Alvarez gently guided the children toward her car parked outside. That's when Daniel saw it. The detail. The thing that made his entire body go cold. As Liam adjusted his sleeve, the cuff of his jacket lifted just enough to reveal a small birthmark on his wrist. A crescent shape, dark and unmistakable. Daniel's breath caught. He knew that mark. He had seen it before. In old photographs buried in a locked drawer. On the wrist of a woman he had once loved. on the wrist of a child he had never met. His hand trembled slightly as Mrs. Alvarez opened the car door. "Wait," he said. Everyone turned. He stepped closer, trying not to stare. "Liam, where's your mother?" The boy hesitated. "Her name's Emily," he said finally. "Emily Carter." The world tilted. Daniel hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 14 years. Emily Carter. The woman who had disappeared from his life without warning. The woman who had once stood in the rain outside his first construction site, promising him she believed in his dreams. The woman he had chosen to leave behind when ambition became more important than love. "Where is she now?" Daniel asked, his voice barely steady. Liam swallowed. "She's at the hospital." Mrs. Alvarez stepped in gently. "Their mother was admitted yesterday. Severe pneumonia. She left them in the store while she went to get help, but she collapsed before she could come back." Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. "Which hospital?" he asked. Mrs. Alvarez studied him carefully. "Why?" "Because if those children were who he feared they might be. Because if the timeline matched. Because if fate had just placed them in front of him on a random rainy afternoon." "Because I need to see her," Daniel said. The rain intensified, drumming against the pavement. Lily tugged on his coat sleeve. "Are you mad at our mom?" she asked. He looked down at her. At her eyes. Emily's eyes. "No," he whispered. "I'm not mad." He was terrified. An hour later, Daniel stood in the sterile hallway of St. Matthew's Hospital. The smell of disinfectant filled his lungs. The lights were too bright. Too harsh. He hadn't felt this nervous in years. Not during million-dollar negotiations. Not during lawsuits. Not during interviews. But now his hands felt unsteady. Mrs. Alvarez had allowed him to follow after explaining he might be a family friend. The children waited in the lobby with a nurse. Room 312. He paused outside the door. What if he was wrong? What if this was coincidence? What if opening that door shattered something he had carefully built for over a decade? He pushed it open. The room was quiet except for the soft beep of monitors. Emily lay pale against white sheets. Thinner than he remembered. Dark hair streaked with exhaustion. Oxygen tubing resting beneath her nose. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. She stirred slightly, eyes fluttering open. It took her several seconds to focus on him. And when she did, the color drained from her face. "Daniel," she whispered. He stepped closer, emotions colliding inside him like crashing waves. "Hi, Emily." Silence stretched between them, heavy with 14 years of unanswered questions. "You shouldn't be here," she said weakly. "I found the kids," he replied. Her eyes widened in panic. "They're okay. They're safe." Tears slipped down her temples. "I was coming back," she breathed. I couldn't breathe." He believed her. "Emily," he said slowly, "how old are they?" She hesitated. Then she closed her eyes. 13. The math hit him like a punch. 13 years ago. The same year she disappeared. The same year he had received one cryptic letter saying she needed space and that he should focus on his future. He felt the room spin. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, pain cracking through his composed exterior. She looked at him with something like heartbreak. "Because you made it clear there was no room in your future for anything that slowed you down." Her words weren't angry. They were tired. "I didn't want to be a burden," she whispered. "And I didn't want them to grow up feeling unwanted." Daniel's chest tightened. Unwanted. Was that what he had made her feel? Outside the room, thunder rolled. Inside, years of pride began to crumble. "They're mine," he asked quietly. Emily didn't answer with words. She simply nodded. And in that moment, the self-made millionaire, owner of skyscrapers and luxury estates, felt smaller than he ever had in his life. 3 children, his children, alone in a store, waiting, shivering, believing they had been abandoned. Have you ever discovered that the life you built came at a cost you never understood? Daniel stepped back from the bed, gripping the railing as if the ground might give way beneath him. "All these years," he murmured. "I thought you chose your dreams," Emily said softly. "So I chose to let you have them." The monitor beeped steadily, but inside Daniel, something fractured. He thought of Liam's protective stance. No silent strength. Lily's brave little voice asking if she was in trouble. They had his eyes, Emily's smile, and they had grown up without him. The door creaked open slightly. Lily peeked in. "Mom," she called gently. Emily turned her head. Daniel froze. This was the moment. The line between the man he had been and the man he might become. Lily stepped fully into the room, her brothers behind her. They looked from their mother to Daniel, confusion flickering across their identical faces. "Mom," Liam asked carefully. Who is he? Emily's gaze met Daniel's, and for the first time in his life, wealth meant nothing. Only truth did. Her voice trembled as she answered. He's someone very important. Daniel swallowed, because the next words would change all of their lives forever. And he wasn't sure if he deserved the chance to say them. Part 2 continues. Lily's small hand tightened around the hospital blanket as she waited for her mother to finish the sentence. The room felt too quiet, too fragile, like a glass ornament about to shatter. Emily looked at Daniel, and for a moment he saw the girl she used to be, the one who had stood beside him when he had nothing but blueprints and borrowed tools. He's your father, she whispered. The word seemed to hang in the air, heavier than thunder. Father. Liam blinked first. Nose lips parted slightly. Lily just stared. Daniel felt the weight of their confusion press against his chest. He had faced courtroom battles, corporate betrayals, financial crashes, but nothing had ever stripped him so completely of control. You left, Liam said finally. His voice didn't tremble. It didn't need to. Daniel opened his mouth, but no